Welcome to Fireside Giants. My name is Alex with my co-host here, Anthony Rivardo. Today we want to give some expectations, some predictions, projections for Saquon Barkley this upcoming 2022 football season. Now, I know Saquon Barkley is coming off a couple of years of injury-prone play, the ACL tear, partially torn MCL. Then you have last year, the ankle injury. That right leg has been through a grinder of injuries, man. It's been, honestly, I don't even know how he still has a right leg. It's not just a peg leg at this point, but definitely a little bit of a tumultuous couple of seasons, but looking to make a comeback in his final year on his rookie contract. Of course, they picked up his fifth-year option last season, so he's on the contract, on the books for this year. And now the Giants are saying, how can we get the most out of him during his last season, potentially as a Giant until he hits free agency? So kind of want to give some insight into what they're trying to do with him, what they're probably going to look to accomplish, and some projected stats for the 2022 season based on those, different usages and whatnot. So, Anthony, before we dive into Saquon Barkley, how you doing today, my friend?
Doing great, and I'm really excited to watch Saquon Barkley in the upcoming 2022 season because this is a player who had just otherworldly potential coming out of the draft in 2018. And unfortunately for Saquon and for the Giants, injuries have held him back, and he hasn't been able to reach that potential. Now, Saquon's probably disappointed with the way that his career has gone so far. He's just been ravaged with injuries. He's dealt with coaching changes left and right, and he hasn't really found himself a home in New York just yet. And that sucks to say because it's already been 4 seasons. He should have been settled in to a good offense, being productive year after year. And that's just not what his career has looked like. And Saquon Barkley is, a lot of people consider him to be the greatest running back prospect to ever come out of the draft. He was that good coming out of Penn State. And, the ceiling was there and the expectations were there, and none of that has been reached so far. So the hope is 2022 comes around, Saquon Barkley stays healthy this year. And if he stays healthy this year, combined with a brand new head coach who's offensive minded, new offensive coordinator coming from the Kansas City Chiefs, hopefully Saquon Barkley can finally have that breakout season. He broke out in his rookie season. Everybody was like, okay, if he's this good as a rookie, imagine what he'll be in years 2, 3, 4, and 5. Well, now here we are entering year 5, and he has not really had a season like his rookie year. So the hope is that he can at least return to that form. And who knows, man, maybe Brian Dable, Mike Kafka can finally unlock that next level of Saquon Barkley if he can stay healthy and he can start to build upon the potential that he showed us in 2018.
Yeah, I mean, the 2018 version of Saquon Barkley, after that season, we were like, okay, the Giants kind of suck, but Saquon Barkley is going to be a Hall of Famer. Like, that was the mentality after that insane 2018 season where he had over 2,000 all-purpose yards and 15 touchdowns. And Pat Shurmur knew how to use him, man. Like, Pat Shurmur got him involved in every facet of the game, whether it was receiving game or even having a good rushing attack. And, like, they didn't have a good offensive line. He just managed to break away a ton of yardage. So, he had 1,300 rushing yards during his rookie season and 721 receiving yards. He hasn't been able to match that, obviously, since then. Had a 1,000-yard rushing season in 2019, despite dealing with some injuries. Just barely reached 1,000 yards at 1,003 yards. He had a big game, I think, to finish the season against Washington and really pushed him over the edge, like 100 and something yards. But upcoming season, what makes him such an inspiring prospect here, and why I'll probably be buying low on him during my fantasy football league. A lot of people are going to be scared to draft him in fantasy football. Grab him at the end of the first round, top of the second round. If he's there, easy selection. This is a guy who the injuries obviously were holding him back, but a good offensive line, a good scheme, if he can stay healthy, he's going to have a monster season. And mainly because they're going to get him involved in the receiving game as well. And he's going to be a focal point for this offense. And, Matt Breida is definitely a good handcuff for Saquon Barkley. So if you're a fantasy football player, Saquon Barkley, bottom of the first round, early second, definitely a good spot to get him. And then Matt Breida too, little handcuff action because he's going to serve a pretty decent role, I think, on third downs and whatnot, just mitigating fatigue essentially. But Saquon Barkley this upcoming year, I think I'm going to peg him at about 1,100 yards rushing. So 1,100 yards rushing. I want to say originally I had 400 yards receiving, but given how I think that Mike Kafka and Dable are going to use him in the receiving game, I think that could go as high as 600 yards receiving. And I think he'll have about 9 touchdowns. I think he's just going to fall short of double-digit touchdowns, but 9 touchdowns is a pretty solid amount for him last year. Let's see, he had 4 touchdowns in total, so he would more than double 2021's production. So if he maintains his health, I think he'd get up to 600 yards receiving, 1,100 yards rushing, and about 9 touchdowns. What are you thinking for projections on him?
Honestly, those projections are pretty much the same that I had. If I really had to, put numbers out there, I'd say about 1,100 yards rushing. I think, the Giants are going to be throwing the ball a whole lot more. And I think Saquon Barkley, as you mentioned, is going to be a lot more heavily involved in the receiving game. Already at mini camp, they're putting him out wide and putting him in the slot more frequently than coaches have done in the past. So I'm really excited for that aspect of Saquon Barkley. I think when you look at his rushing, receiving, touchdown total, if you combine the two, he's definitely going to crack double digits in that regard, in my opinion, if he's healthy for 16 games. I think that you could see him match his 15 touchdown total from 2018. Of course, rushing plus receiving combined. I think that's very possible for him. And I do think this is a player that could once again eclipse 2,000 yards from scrimmage. I'm not predicting that, but I do think it's in the cards for Saquon Barkley if he really is used in the offense in the variety of ways that we're expecting him to be used. So I'm going to say, I think probably 1,800 total yards from scrimmage. You kind of hit it on the head, like 600 yards receiving. That's completely realistic for Saquon Barkley, I think. And, 1,100 rushing yards with, about 9 touchdowns. All of that makes sense to me. What I'm curious to see is how many receptions he gets, of course, for fantasy PPR leagues, but also just because his rookie season, he was so good because he was being force fed the ball all the time. And he had 261 rushing attempts on top of the 91 receptions that he had. He was targeted 121 times in the receiving game. So will he be able to get 100 targets again this upcoming season? I'm not so sure, but I think that that's going to be pretty important when you're looking at the factors for Saquon Barkley and how productive he's going to be this upcoming season. If he gets 100 targets this year, he's going to have a monster season. And everybody's going to wish that they drafted him in their fantasy leagues, especially if they're playing PPR, because this is a player who in his rookie season, 2018, did total 91 receptions. So this year, it's completely realistic that he puts up another 75 receptions or 55 at least. I think that's kind of his floor. 55 receptions is probably his floor if he's healthy all year, but I could see him totally getting about 75 receptions if he's that involved in the offense the way that he was in 2018 and the way that we expect Brian Daboll and Mike Kafka to get him involved in 2022.
Absolutely. I mean, then you have to look at the offensive line, and they're already like seemingly going to be much better. Evan Neal, 6'8", 300 and something pounds. Dude's a mammoth of a human being. Mark Lewinsky, known for his run blocking. And then you have Andrew Thomas on the left side, known for his run blocking. Obviously, very good pass blocker as well last year, as he proved. But, then Daniel Bellinger, rookie 4th rounder at tight end. He's a much more than capable blocker getting out to the second level. And Saquon basically said about Evan Neal specifically, anytime as a running back you draft a guy like that, it's going to put a smile on your face. I think this could be one of the best offensive lines he'll ever have as a running back in the league. I think he's been tortured by poor offensive line play. He's had to do a lot of the effort and a lot of the work on his own. And at this point in time, I think that the Giants are putting him in a place to succeed along with Daniel Jones. So, you know what? Like, this is Saquon's opportunity to make his money, man. Like, if he's going to get paid next year, if he's going to get an extension from the Giants or another team, he's got to have a dominant 2021-22 season. And it's going to come down to the offensive line, the scheme, and really getting him as many touches as possible in the Giants. Obviously, he's one of their better playmakers. You might as well manufacture production for Daniel Jones in the screen game and short yardage situations with Saquon Barkley as a receiver. So I'm definitely excited about Saquon Barkley to see what he can do in his last year on the rookie contract. Definitely a lot to be desired after his rookie season, but we'll see if he can make the bounce back if his right leg can hold up, because definitely a lot of injuries to that portion of his body, the lower body specifically. So we'll see what happens, guys. I'd love to hear your projections for Saquon Barkley in the comments below on YouTube. As always, my friends, make sure to like and subscribe, and we'll catch you guys on the next Fireside Giants episode.